Hey, how you doing today? It's your favorite cousin, GC Radio. And today I have with me the legendary Jay. Jay is not only a father, a mentor, a trainer, but he's also a good boxer. You can see over his head the accomplishments, some of the things he's done. But more than that, we're going to share a lot of insight of who Jay is, and not just a boxer and a trainer, and some other things, facts of life. So, Jay, how you doing today, bro?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, Robert. I appreciate it.
And Square Ring Magazines is honored to have you today, bro. So, just to let my people know a little bit, where are you from?
I'm in Canada. I'm living in British Columbia, Canada right now, and I'm from the Maritimes, but I've covered a lot of ground in Canada. I've lived all over.
Man, I don't know what the weather's like that, man, but it's cold down here. If you can send me some heat, man, I appreciate it.
Well, I'm actually fortunate. I'm kind of in the golden triangle of good weather out here in BC in the lower mainland. I haven't put winter tires on my car in 3 years, no word of a lie. So fortunate.
Wow. Well, I haven't put winter tires in my car here either, man. I'm in Mississippi today in Big Spur. We don't get much snow out here, but we got a lot of rain and a lot of cold weather, man. We got cheated. We got the snow weather, but we didn't get the snow.
No doubt,
Man, it's not good. It's not good. You know it's bad when they tell you to go into your house and wrap your pipes up, put a blanket on your pipes, and leave the water on it. You know it's cold.
Yeah, I know. That's reserved for your neighbors up north. That's some Canada stuff. Hey.
So, man, let's get to talk about our favorite sports, boxing, man. What got you interested in boxing?
That's a good question, man. Actually, I had just moved back from Edmonton to the east coast of Canada to Nova Scotia, and just kind of went to a new area that was predominantly black. A lot of people I was actually related to, but they didn't know me, and I was that light skinned guy with the good hair, right? So I got chased home a few times, and you know, basically got suspended in grade 5 for bringing a knife to school, and that was kind of like the linchpin to something happening. So I got grounded and in trouble by my mom, and then my grandfather's cousin, who was a pro boxer way back in the day, the late Keith Paris, he took me up to the boxing club in Halifax. It was the Citadel Boxing Club, the old Citadel Boxing Club, and I went up there and told me to put some gloves on, go hit the bag, and he started talking with my old coach, who's passed on as well now, Taylor Gordon. And after I had tuckered myself out, they came up and he said, I hear you're having some hard time adjusting and stuff like that in the neighborhood and at school. And I said, yeah. He said, would you believe me if I told you come here every day after school, you'd be a champion one day? And really that was the seed. He planted the seed, and that created the spark. And I tell him, look, I can't afford the membership, the scene afford the annual dues and stuff. He said, look, you come here every day after school. He said, I don't care if people got to chase you here. He said, you tell them get their runners on and chase you here. And when you get here, if they want to fight, we'll put you in the ring and you guys can duke it out like men. And he said, you come here and we'll take care of those membership fees, right? So they made good on their word, and I made good on my word, and the rest was history. Right? So 10 years
And he
old, I
said, just
started
make
boxing.
it. So all you do is just make it to the gym. If I get to the gym, if I get to the gym.
That was it, you know what I mean? But that was it, right? I had to run the gauntlet, you know what I mean? I had to deal with guys from junior high at the elementary, you know what I mean, picking on me. So it was like to get to the boxing club was still like an accomplishment every day, you know?
All right.
Yeah.
So, so what age were you when you started training?
I was 10 years old when I started boxing. So 92, 91, 92. Yeah,
Oh,
long
that's
time.
interesting. So how long did it train before you trained before you got in your actual first match?
I trained almost 2 years. The age for competition in Canada was 12 years old at that time. And so, yeah, I trained for almost 2 years before I got my first fight. And I won my first fight, fought the first guy and the second guy being the same guy. So I knew what I was looking at in the second fight. And the first fight, I was fortunate. I stopped him with an overhand left that hit him in the mouth, and I knocked his tooth out. And fortunately, the referee stopped the bout at the beginning of the third round, And I don't know if I would have been able to make it through that round. My thumb was hurting so bad.
So how'd you get a rematch clause in your first fight?
Well, we went to his town and we beat his ass in his town, and then there was really nobody else to fight at that age. I was like 11, 10, I was like 12 years old, and I was like 132 pounds, I think it was. And so, basically he was the only other guy in the province that was old enough and big enough for me to fight. So that's how that second one ended up coming to pass. And it was definitely one of those things that was important for me, a confidence booster. It shows the first time wasn't an accident. I didn't fluke it. So yeah, that was really the beginning for me. After that second fight, like I thought, okay, yeah, like maybe I could see myself being a provincial champion or something like that, right? And a couple of years later, a year later, I was the provincial champion, right?
Wow. That's great, man. I mean, coming in as, a young guy, 11, 12 years old, 2-0, you had to train for 2 years. Even though you trained for 2 years, you had unofficial fights. Because when you sparring, you actually fight. Y'all ain't just tagging each other. Y'all going at it. So, but they don't go on your record though. But coming in as 2-0, young age, I don't know, man. I'd had to let some kids have it. Hey, you don't want these skibbity paps? Hey, hey, I had that chip on my shoulder. I'm undefeated.
Well, the beauty is that our coaches weren't putting pressure on us at that age, and they probably weren't eyeing up our potential at that time, realistically, right? But I was extremely lucky to have. I think we had 5 Olympians in our gym that were active, that were training. At one time in '96, we actually had 8 Canadian champions in our gym. We had 3 intermediates, we had 3 or 4 seniors, and I think we had 1 junior or something like that. So, like we were a powerhouse back in those days. And so, my sparring partners that I grew up with were all actually the seniors in the gym: the Randall Thompsons, the Blake Stevensons, the David Diefierbons. David won the silver in '96 in Atlanta against Felix Savon. And he had a pretty solid pro career. I think he was 28-2 or something like that when he hung up the gloves and stuff. But these guys were really a big part of shaping my character, my personality, and really just my mindset when it came to the sport.
Wow. That's an honor, man. That is an honor. Um, so not only you
Yeah.
learn this craft and the skills, you learn sportsmanship, and like you said, with great rewards is great responsibility, and that's very mature to teach at a young age. Because I see a lot of professionals don't even have sportsmanship and security as adults. So that's nice to see that that's something instilled with you in the fundamentals. Now, let me ask you this
Well,
question. So, seeing that you've been boxing at a young age, now I've heard some boxers tell me that they've been hit so hard that they don't even know how the fight ended, that they stuck to the fundamentals and got to the end of the fight and they actually won a couple matches. Is that actually possible?
honestly, I'm saying this without any BS. I don't know that I've ever had a concussion in my life. I've been hit by cars. I've been hit with objects, right? I've, fallen off of things. I should not still be here. But for whatever reason, I've never been knocked out cold, even in one of the losses that I had. I mean, still don't know how I got up from that one, but I mean, I got up and then fell back down, and that's why the ref stopped the fight, right? But, as long as there's a heartbeat in my chest, you're not going to get me to lay down or take a knee or quit. It's not in my DNA.
I mean, people got to understand no matter what you do in life, you need to have your heart in it. And when you play sports, even though if it's boxing or not, you got to have your heart in it. If you don't have your heart in it, then you most likely will be injured or hurt seriously. Sports, all sports have some degree of impact. Football, you go on full speed, velocity, your weight into each other like run to a brick wall. Boxing, numerous punches in the head, the body. That's why you got to learn the techniques and the fundamentals in defense, and you got to have it in your heart. It can't be instilled by living somebody else's dreams like mom or dad or uncle. You got to be your dream. You got to be your destiny, and you got to give it your all. unless you want to collect these skibbity paps. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's about 11 people a year that die in professional boxing. There's about the same amount that die in amateur boxing. And, I think this day and age with all these influencers and YouTubers and pretend fighters out there,
Uh-huh.
we're really at a dangerous time where you got the average Joe, couch surfer, keyboard warrior that thinks that they can just get up off the couch and be a fighter too, right? And get in there with a real trained fighter. No, you cannot. The difference between fighting some dude that's spent his whole life training to be a weapon versus some dude that's just yapping off at the mouth outside at the bar, it's a completely different universe. It really is, right? And your
Right.
life is in danger when you're in there with a skilled fighter, right? And so
Right.
I take that seriousness into the ring with me. I want to come home every day. And I made a promise to myself every day I'm going to come home at all costs. When I step into the ring, the night that I have a fight, I know there's a possibility I might not come home that day. I might not see my children ever again. But when I leave that door to go to that venue that night, I've made my peace with God and with everyone else in this world. And so when I go out there, what I'm thinking about is I'm completely vindicated and justified in what I'm going to do because that individual that signed a contract is trying to kill me. And how can I take that lightly? I don't take that lightly. And then when you add in the fact that I have an inherent paranoia that I'm not going to get a fair decision, it means that I don't ever have any intentions of leaving it to the hands of the judges. So I'm willing to sell out. I'm willing to die in that ring every time I'm in there. So everybody that's in there with me better be of the same belief because we're going there.
Wonderful. So let me ask you this. So we're going down memory lane. So you're 12 years old, you're 2-0, you don't beat the same guy twice. You won your rematch clause. What's next? I mean, what happens next?
I think after that, I had almost a year go between fights, and actually, I didn't fight until the provincials the following year, where I actually won my first provincials in '93, and I ended up winning 5 straight provincial titles as I was basically gaining weight. You know what I mean? So I think one of the things for me, I think I kept a lot of my skills, high nuance skills, because I started boxing at like 120 pounds, right? And
Right.
within a few years, I was already a super heavyweight. So I came up in the weights, and as I was learning and developing my skills, I was maintaining those nuanced skills that smaller guys have to kind of manage and stuff like that, right? Like bigger guys, the heavyweights, they get more into the physicality side of things, leaning on guys, holding, hugging, tugging, trying to wear you out with those other kind of things, right? Whereas in the lighter divisions, you don't really have that option, right? You can't hold and hug on a guy. He's just going to keep it moving and just shoe shine, right? So being able to come up through the weight classes, I think really helped me keep my skill set sharp and probably above average for heavyweights.
So let's take a quick commercial break and we'll come back and we'll learn about phase 2, what happened in your career. We'll be right back after these messages. And it's your boy, Cousin Chief, back. I'm here with my man, Jaye, at Square Ring Magazine interview, and we're talking about phase 2. So far, Jay shared with us his Trump, and he won his first rematch clause. He took a year off, and he's back in the ring. So what happens now, Jay? You back in the ring, had a year off. You got the gloat as a champ, undefeated for 2 years in an 11, 12-year-old division age group. What happens next?
Well, basically at that point, I really was resolved in wanting to pursue my amateur career. At that point, I had peers in the gym that were training around the same amount of time as me, and were kind of developing at the same time, smaller guys, but still they ended up on the provincial team with me, and eventually on the national team and stuff like that as well, right? So, really the difficult part at that time for me was, at 11, I lost my grandfather. He passed away, and that was the only male father figure that I had in my life. So, at that point, when I hit 12, really the world started to raise me up, and all the difficult situations and circumstances that I was dealing with as a young man. My story is not all that unique in that respect. Like, I experienced a lot of abuse when I was a kid, right? Physical, emotional, sexual, financial, the whole 9 yards, right? And so those things shape you, and they mold your character, and they set you up for potential triggers and all kinds of other stuff in the future that you might not even realize. Like, why is it that I act that way or react that way, right? But ultimately those things, that hard life was what shaped me and molded me and forged me to be able to compete and to pursue my amateur career. And so, the first half of my career in the amateurs, I won 5 straight provincial titles, 4 Canadian heavyweight titles, 2 heavyweight, 2 super heavyweight. I won bronze medal at the European Championships in Poland in 95, 96. And I was on my way, being groomed, like you said, right, for the 2000 Olympic Games. And I was really fortunate that, like, even in '96, when we had 3 guys come from our gym to go to the Olympics, the North American qualifying rounds were in Halifax that year. So the week that I was going to the national championships paralleled with the qualifying rounds. So when everybody was coming in to qualify, I got to spar with all the elite guys and stuff like that were making the Olympic team. So the guys that were going to the Olympics for, like, super heavyweight for Canada, like Jean-Francois Bergeron, Troy Amos Ross, who was a light heavyweight 2-time Olympian who won a contender series. He just got elected into the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. I was 15 years old banging with these guys and holding my own with them when they were on their way to the Olympics. So that really kind of helped set me up for the belief that I was, going to be able to make it to an elite level. And certainly having the 4 Canadian titles under my belt by the time I was 16 definitely validated that belief and that notion, right?
And that's a hell of a compliment. So,
Yeah.
did you make
And
it
then
to the Olympics, or what happened after that?
well, good question. I mean, everything about me at that point in time was trying to survive, to hold on. I was a ward of the court, I guess you'd call it. I was state property down there. So at 13, I left my mom's care, and I was a ward of the court. So I was getting the money that they would give a foster parent every month, which was $500 a month, to go to school and boxing every day, and have to cover my living expenses and stuff, right? If I missed school and boxing, then they'd hold my check out, and I'd have to come down and have an intervention at the end of the month, right? Well, my rent's $4.95 every month, right? So no matter how you slice it, I'm having to live on $5. And so eventually I found myself in a situation just trying to survive, where, unfortunately, being around the wrong individuals at the wrong place at the wrong time, I found myself in an incident where somebody lost their life. And it changed my life forever. It cost somebody else, and unfortunately affected a lot of other people's for forevermore as a result of that. So unfortunately, that was what my reality was. Here I am, a promising up and coming boxer on my way to the Olympic Games, and whoop, yet now I'm actually looking at a life sentence and going to jail for murder. And so, in that moment, the only thing I could do is essentially what I had been taught and trained to do my whole life. handle your shit like a man. Pardon my language. You know, I turned myself in.
What age was that, Jay?
Handle your shit like a man. I
No,
turned
no. What
myself
age?
in.
What age were you at that point?
16. I was 16 years old when this situation occurred. And so, you know, as I was saying, you know, what you go through in life shapes you, it molds you, it forges you, it causes you to act and to react certain ways, right? So, you know, the trauma and the abuse that I experienced as a young man long before that night ever occurred was really what kind of created the environment for that type of a situation to even unfold, right?
Right.
You know, I went to an event with a couple of guys I knew, and we were going to hang out with a couple of girls there that were the same age as us, teenagers, right?
Huh?
You know, we get there and there's an individual that's like twice our age, you know, giving those girls drugs and alcohol and wanting to party with them, and they're kind of trying to barricade them from coming up, right? And unfortunately, those messages, those tapes that you play in your head when you've been hurt before and traumatized, right? You start recognizing, oh, maybe that looks like predatory behavior. That looks like, you know, unacceptable behavior, and that gives you permission inside of your head to maybe do things that you wouldn't do otherwise, right? So, being two young kids, you know, trying to make a quick buck, that's really what we were thinking about in the moment when we seen an opportunity. And you know, the individual wanted to trade us crack that night we didn't have. And so, you know, it was a real unfortunate situation that those types of things kind of happened. And, you know, unfortunately, I've spent the rest of my life having to make amends and to try and learn from my mistakes and to try and share that cautionary tale with people of how, you know, just in an instant, man, you can find yourself in a situation that you never seen coming, you never imagined would happen, never thought it would happen to you or anybody else, and then you're in it, man, and your life has changed forevermore. So, you know, sitting there with that being my reality, when I turned myself in at 16 and I got sentenced to second-degree murder and got a life sentence, I was determined to not be that sad story, that statistic, that guy everybody heard about. We all know him, right? Whatever happened to that guy, so and so? Oh, I don't know, man. He was so talented, man. He had so much potential, but geez, yeah, I don't know, man. That to me was failure. That was the fear that I felt in my first fight. I was more afraid of failing than getting beat up. So for me to come through my prison sentence and to not be a fighter still, to me, that was the biggest thing. I lost my freedom, and I was more concerned about my boxing career in that moment, right? Because for me, that was the one bright spot in my life. That was the one thing that gave me an opportunity to find a way out of the unfortunate circumstances that I was in. And so
you went in at 16. How long were you in for?
So I went in at 16. I got put in basically segregation for almost a year until I pled out. And then they raised me up and sent me to a maximum security prison in New Brunswick called Reduce. And I did 8.5 years before I got out on day parole. And then I was out for 5 months. And then I was sent back for 11.5 years because I may have had information about a crime that was committed months before they arrested me. And so I spent 11.5 years back in custody without any charges, without any proof I breached my conditions, right? Just based on the possibility I might have had information about a crime other people committed. And so I did 19.5 years in total inside, over 7,500 days, over 1,500 days in segregation in that stretch. And I got out at 36, 37. And, you know, I had married my junior high sweetheart on our 20-year anniversary when I was inside after winning a human rights complaint for spiritual infringement. I took that money and paid for our wedding and also, you know, purchased my personal trainings courses and certifications so that when I was done my upgrading that I could start working on that plan for life after boxing, right? So, you know,
so did you train? Did you train when you was locked up, or?
Yeah, like so So one thing is like they don't condone violence in prison, and they don't consider boxing a sport. They consider it violence, right? So you're not allowed to box inside up here, and they've even done away with it in the state pens and stuff like that now as well. I'm under the understanding, but what I did is I made sure that I kept my mind right. I stayed disciplined, and I didn't use drugs, and I didn't get caught up in all the prison politics and stuff like that. Um, I manifested everything that's happening today, pacing back and forth in those cells, saying I'm going to get out one day and I'm going to box. I'm going to get out one day and I'm going to travel the box. I'm going to get out one day and I'm going to be a champion. And everything that I've said, as I've said already, has come true to fruition. And everything that I would have been manifesting, I would have been told was completely impossible at some point. And so, even once I did that stretch, I got out at 37, I got sent back 2 weeks before my parole hearing was set again to have a continuation. I got sent back again because they were trying to railroad me and basically put me back in forever. They did not want me boxing, the corrections, right? So basically, I was fortunate to have a dear friend help me with some legal expenses and pay to get the lawyer to prove that I actually didn't breach my conditions at all. They had manufactured four breaches trying to send me back when I was out for 2 years just trying to pursue my career. I had a BC Lions tryout set that they cost me as well, and my pro debut was supposed to happen a few months before it ultimately ended up happening, and it would have been a very different outcome had it been that fight versus the one that I had to start my pro career with, right? But all once again, just learning experiences, and just it was the fire that forged what's in front of you now, right?
Man, you have an interesting story, man. Let's take another quick commercial break and we come back and learn about life after release and you re-entering back in the boxing community. We'll be right back after this quick message.
I should have put you somewhere when GC Radio is giving away to some of its lucky listeners Beats by Dre earbuds. That's right, Beats by Dre earbuds. It's no cost to its listeners to register. Just go to gcradiohub.com and enter the free raffle. So don't hesitate. Go to gcradiohub.com, click on the earbud, register, and cross your fingers, because you could be one of the lucky listeners. These earbuds are priced at $169, and you can win a pair for free. That's right, free of charge to you. Just enter the raffle at gcradiohub.com and stay tuned to our live broadcast, The Cuzzin Chief Show, Afro Beats with King Glow, Uncut After Dark with Freaky and Friends, the Mississippi King on the Southern Soul Superstar Station. Stay tuned to any of those live shows and listen out for your name being called. At GC Radio, you have to get connected to stay connected. At gcradiohub.com.
And we back. This is your cousin Chief and Jay, and we learned a lot, man. This is like part 3 of this interview, and we learned a lot. This man has an interesting story. As the recap of, we just came back. He had some challenging times getting out of some trouble. Trouble is easy to get into and hard as hell to get out. The things we do take usually 2 to 3 seconds to make our mind up, and it takes us sometimes a year or a half a lifetime to get out of. And after my man Jay has paid his debt aside, he got a situation, he had some other obstacles he was sharing with us to get over to get back in his boxing career. And once that was down to legal, what happened next, Jay?
Well, basically, once I got back out in 2019, I was in for about 120 days, and then fortunately got back out. I had to move out of the location, the area that I was in, which I subsequently moved back into, just because I was having like issues with the people that are managing my case, right? So I moved to Vancouver, started over at a new spot, and got a new case management team, and really didn't have any problems since then. It was pretty much smooth sailing since I got to get out, start my pro career. I was still having travel issues and stuff like that. And I'm always going to have those issues. I have to, obviously ask for permission to leave my radius, my boundary lines, right, in advance and that sort of stuff. So anytime that I'm going away for training camps and fights and stuff, I've got to get the clearance and stuff like that beforehand, right? But I think it was interesting because when they finally kind of just let me do it, right? It was almost like I felt like they must have been sitting behind a water cooler somewhere and we're like, look, this guy's like 37. He's old. He hasn't fought in 20 years. Just let him do it. He's gonna get his head punched in, and he's gonna go push a broom somewheres and live a quiet, unassuming life, not bother us, right? And so once they let my foot in the door, right, you've seen what happened, right? I mean, I essentially started making history every single time out, because you have to look at the context of this, right? Muhammad Ali lost 3 years of his pro career because of that draft issue. George Foreman retired basically for 10 years or so and had to come back to secure funding and resources for the community center that he had. I gave the world a 19-and-a-half-year head start. And I'm right now ranked 8th in the NABF in the Bridger weight division. And I've been ranked as high as 124 in box rec in the open heavyweight division. And there's about 1,500 or so fighters in the heavyweight division. So if there was about 1,500 fighters in the heavyweight division back in the 80s when Mike Tyson was rising, he would have climbed about 1,500 spots in about 2 years. So I'm on pace. I'm doing exactly what Mike Tyson was doing. And I'm actually doing it in a cooler fashion because I'm coaching and training myself. So, to back it up a little bit there, I started my pro career off working with people who didn't have my best interest at heart. And when I was 0-4, everybody on my team that's even still there now to this day gave up. And at 0-4, we know what we're calling fighters that are 0-4. And at 0-4, you know what I said to everybody that gave up?
What was that?
When I'm 10 fights in, I'm going to be 6-4, eh? 10 fights in, I made a point of putting a post up acknowledging that what I said was correct. And now, 2 more fights later, we're 8-4. And when I'm finished my career, I'm going to finish my career with 4 losses. And so the one thing that I can't impress to you enough is how deadly serious I am about boxing. And it's hilarious to me that no promoter out there wants to sign a guy that eats, sleeps, and breathes boxing, right? We see all kinds of guys out there doing it for the wrong reasons, doing it for likes and follows and fame and all this kind of stuff, right? You guys can keep all that. I just want to be a world champion. I just want to be number 1. That's it.
So what weight class? So what weight class are you in?
Well, right now I'm in the Bridger weight division, which in Canada we call heavyweight. Anything over 223 globally now would be super heavyweight in Canada, or just open heavyweight. So you have 2 of the 4 major belt organizations that have acknowledged the 200 to 223 weight class, but BoxRec still hasn't, and there's still 2 other major belts that haven't. But the WBC and apparently the WBO have acknowledged it. The WBC calls it cruiser or Bridger weight, and apparently the WBO, I think it calls it super cruiser, which is, in my opinion, a big mistake on both behalves. But nonetheless, what is a classic heavyweight division is the division that I've been campaigning at. And so I won after I went 0-4, I subsequently turned it around. I went 8-0 with 8 knockout wins, and I've won those 4 pro titles. And so 2 years ago, I won the Western Canadian title. A few months later, I unified the Eastern and Western to be the unofficial Canadian champion, because there was no Canadian champion in that division. Then last February, 2 weeks ago today almost, a year and 2 weeks from now, I will have been the Canadian champion and the UBO Continental Heavyweight Champion after knocking out Ben Alvarez who was 16 years younger than me, an undefeated fighter that trained out of Canelo Alvarez's gym and helped get him ready for the Sergey Kovalev title fight win. So it was extremely gratifying to knock out a Team Canelo guy, right? That's 16 years younger than me, but that's been almost the kiss of death because now nobody wants to fight me, right? So, you know, we had one fight after that last year in September in Montreal, and I knocked the guy out in 124 seconds, I think, and I don't believe there was even a recorded punch landed on me in that fight either. And a year before in Montreal, almost to the day, I did the same thing in about 45 seconds to another guy. So if you know much about Canadian boxing, and there's not all that much to know about Canadian boxing, you'll know that Montreal and Quebec is kind of the mecca of boxing in Canada. And one thing that does not happen is people do not roll into Montreal or Quebec and knock people out that are from there. And there's a variety of reasons why I won't get into, but they do not like it happening, and it does not happen too often, and they don't want it happening too often. So, you know, we're still trying to get calls and offers, and, you know, people say I'm too small, I'm too old, I'm this and that. But the truth is if people thought that they could beat me, they'd be sending a contract, right?
Right.
And, you know,
Facts.
if people thought that they could beat me, they'd be calling me out. The truth is I've had 4 belts. I haven't had one person in a year call me out. Not one person on the planet has called Jaye Byard out.
Nobody want to shout at the belt, huh? You'd rather let it stay on your man.
I'm looking for the top 100. I know those guys aren't trying to mess with us, but Moses Altama offered us, or a guy that was off acting on their behalf, offered a contract to us to fight him November 2nd in the UK. And then we didn't get the welcome letter in the contract. And then we see that he was added to the Rida City card there. But like, I wanted that fight all day. And I would have took that fight even though he's an open heavyweight. So, you know, right now I'm 216 pounds. I could make bridgerweight, I could make cruiserweight, and I could make open heavyweight. My manager, Danny McGarvey, is an international matchmaker and sports agent, and he builds and promotes shows all over the place. And so essentially, that's my partner in crime there. And, you know, we're going to win a world title together somehow, some way. I can tell you that much.
So let me recap. Make sure I'm hearing this right. You're training yourself?
Yes. So I coach myself. I train myself. I do all the game planning and strategizing more or less by myself. Like, me and Danny will have some rudimentary conversations about the opponent, and that's where it starts and stops. And then I build the strategy and the plan and the game plan, and then wherever I'm fighting. So, for example, that fight in Montreal that happened last year, I had a whole bunch of people from Ontario that said they were going to come watch this fight, right? When I got there, you know how many people actually showed up?
How many?
One person who drove all the way from Toronto overnight, drove all night long in his truck, showed up. And you know, when he got there, I said, you know what, bro? I said, Elijah, you're the only guy that did what he said he was going to do. I said, would you do me a favor? I said, I'm going to pay for it right now. Will you work my corner for this fight? He's like, what? He's like, I said, yeah, I just literally need you to hold the towel and hold my straps and just wait till I'm done dealing with this guy. And so we licensed him up. He got a knockout win on his coaching record, right? We took care of all of his expenses for making that trip out of pocket. You know what I mean? But that's a solid dude that showed me really where his heart was at. And this wasn't a guy that went way back with me. This was a guy that maybe knew me for a year at the most, right? And it's not like we had a lot of time around each other, because my time around him would have just been when I was in Toronto at training, right? So, you know, that was a blessing for me. But then I realized that, you know, I just need to have somebody legally in my corner. And so, you know, we were fortunate in September, we actually had the Grant brothers in our corner, Howard and Otis Grant in Montreal. working that fight for us, right? Once again, they if we needed them, they would have been there absolutely to provide the assistance that we needed in the ring, technical support, coaching, the whole 9 yards. But fortunately, like I said, a minute and a half. There's not a whole lot of work that they got to get done, right? The biggest challenge that they had was making sure that we all got in the frame for the picture at the end of it. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's a big job. Somebody got to do that, man. Each spoke of the wheel is important.
And the thing is I don't want it to come across like I don't think I need a coach, right? Because first of all, I am a coach, right? And I coach people every day in my job. And so, I was also coached by Olympic team coaches for, the first 7 years of my combat sports journey, right? And then I had 20 years where I had to basically apply those teachings and knowledge into application and try and hold on to the skill set that I had. And so when I got out, in 2018, I won the 2018 provincials for super heavyweight. So that was my 6th provincial titles, 20 years after my reign. Then in 2019, just before I got suspended, I won the 80th annual BC Golden Gloves super heavyweight division. And then a couple of weeks before the nationals, I got suspended. So then I subsequently turned pro after that. But winning those titles definitely. Well, first of all, nobody's ever had a 20-year stretch between winning any kind of title. So boom, there was history again, right? Then when I got out there and finally won a fight, well, I'm the first guy in history serving a life sentence to pursue a combat sports career. First guy to win a fight, first guy to win titles. Then winning that Canadian title gave me my 5th Canadian title, and it gave me George Chavello's record as the oldest heavyweight Canadian champion in history. Right.
And this is an interesting interview. You have an interesting story, bro. We need to make sure this gets out there, and we need to find you somebody to ring with. I'm sure somebody want to challenge you for that belt. Need to step up, man.
Well, at the end of the day, all we need is some resources behind us, right? We get some money behind us, man. We get a financial backer. I'll be fighting 4 times a year. I'm going to get to the top. I have no doubt in my mind.
Well, we sure just somebody listening to this and watching, man, going to do some research on you, brother, and make a call, because that needs to happen. There's a lot of sports enthusiast people out there, and we cater to a lot of them. So hopefully we can carry your story over those years that can make that happen.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm doing the work every day. I'm not under contract. I'm available for a fight. I'm the one guy that's always unhappy when I'm available for a fight, because that means I'm not under contract, and so I got 5 to 7 years where I can keep myself in tip-top shape. Right now I'm running a 1.74 12-minute walk run. So if you understand what that is, that's called the 12-minute Cooper run test. That's how they measure cardiovascular performance and output. And 174 is the line for excellent cardiovascular fitness for any age 30 or younger. So, I'm where I need to be right now. If there was a short notice fight that came up tomorrow in Bridgerweight, I'm walking around underweight, so I could take a same day weigh-in fight right. So
that's
the thing
amazing.
is most fighters don't have the discipline and the desire. They're not doing it for the right reasons, right? And that's the whole thing. I'm in the gym on the following Monday getting ready for the next one, badgering my manager. Why have you not found me a fight? He's like, Jay, we have not cut the hand wraps off of you yet from your fight, and you're asking me about another fight? Come on, man. Like, go enjoy the win. I'll enjoy the win when I'm a world champion. Until then, I'm not going to let anybody rest that's around me. If
Jay, you are extremely.
You're not trying to push it at every turning corner, then you're not part of the team, man.
Jay, you are absolutely focused.
Yeah, man. I'm not about mediocrity, man. Mediocrity hates excellence. I've lived a lifetime of people hating on me, and you know what I mean, trying to prevent me from pursuing my goals and trying to stop me from executing God's plan. But I'm still here. And like I said, I gave the world a 19 and a half year head start. on the world title, right? So
Hey,
like
keeps you on the.
what's happened is the industry, right? People ain't stupid. Promoters aren't stupid. They started realizing we just can't put our guy in there with it. So once again, that's why we need to be in control of our own fate. When we get the money guy behind us, we can buy on the shows or you know what I mean, have a show ourselves, you know what I mean? Then you'll see how things go. It'll be very different. And we will make a point of essentially shaming the establishment that's putting these garbage fights together, man. Nowadays, almost every fight card, you got a Latin B side against, you know what I mean, the A side. And if they're not Latin B sides, they're coming from some other Baltic country or some Argentine country, you know, Argentina, like wherever you can find a dead body that will basically pass the commission is what people are putting on shows now, and it's crap. And the fans should start voting with their dollar. I wouldn't buy one of those fight cards. My life depended on it, right?
Right.
It's like the product has been watered down so much that we're where we are because of the people in the sport that have continued to dump on it, right? And like now, like when was the last time? I don't know if you guys got TSN down there, but like I don't even know the last time a boxing card would have been on TSN, which is the main sports channel for Canada, right? Versus like when I was a kid, you had your Friday night fights, you know what I mean? Night fights at the Foxwood, you know what I mean? You know, Ray Oliveira and those guys and Billy Irwin, you know what I mean? Those guys were the last of like that generational crop that wanted to actually fight the best, right? That didn't care that they had a loss on their record. You know what I mean? They weren't just trying to tiptoe around and, you know, squeeze every dollar out of it than they could, because like at the end of the day, we're fighters. We're not bankers. We're not bank tellers, right? Like your job is to fight, not worry about money. The money comes when you do your job, right? Just do your job, as they say, and everything will be okay. If you
let me ask you this question. How do you feel about the boxing community when the YouTubers come in and want to get in on an action, or the celebrities want to get in on action? What are your thoughts or feeling about the impact? Is it carrying over the sports? Is it watering down the sports? What are your feelings about that?
Well, I'd say that's a great question, and it's absolutely watering the sport down. It's extremely reckless and dangerous. Like, think about it. If you have a gun and you go to the gun range, right, and you see there's 5 or 6 guys sending lead down yonder, right? Are you going to go walk down there while live rounds are being fired? No.
Oh no,
you wouldn't. That's foolish. That'd be stupid, right? But the influencers and the YouTubers, right? They got the average mom and pops that's been sitting on the couch, right, being a keyboard warrior for the last 10 years, thinking that they could just get up and do a little boxing. And the truth is that not everybody can take a punch. Some people take millions of punches over the course of their life and they're never fazed by it. I've been hit with a million punches for sure in my life. I haven't slurred, I haven't stuttered, I haven't forgot what I was saying at all. So I'm one of those guys that can take a punch, right? And then there's people that get hit with one punch and they're dead, they die. They're crushed from one shot, right? So not everybody can be a fighter. And, you know, the Jake Pauls and these guys that are out there with this circus show stuff, right, are putting people's lives in danger, that don't understand the real risk and severity of what it is that they're doing. If you told every person that puts a pair of boxing gloves on before they go in there to spar, hey, do you know that this could be the last time you ever breathe? You might get killed in there today. You still want to do it? You think everybody that's boxing now would still want to do it? No, because in that moment, boom, they would realize, like, I'm actually playing with my life here, right? And anybody that thinks less is completely irresponsible and in the wrong business, because people die every year in this sport. People get hurt every day in this sport. So we can convince ourselves that it's not dangerous, but it is dangerous. But you can't take the
You know,
risk out of boxing. And the politicians and the bureaucrats that are trying to like regulate boxing into safety, that's not going to happen, right? But they're trying to do it because you have all these people trying to get into our business, right? Boxing wasn't for celebrities, right? Boxing wasn't for rich white people, right? Boxing was for people that were coming from impoverished neighborhoods, trying to scrap their way out, literally fighting for fucking food, pardon my language, right? And then you have Jake Paul rigging fights or whatever he's doing with Mike Tyson, putting some kind of wonky clauses in there where he can't knock out Jake Paul or he's going to lose the majority of his purse or whatever crap they had going on in there, right? Everything that's wrong with boxing in that one nutshell there. Right? Guy spent his whole lifetime building a reputation to just piss it down the drain for 10 million on the 20 because the tax man's going to get half, right? So I hope it was worth it. I need money right now in my life. I can't even tell you how serious I am that I would not get down with that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm independent, unsigned, and that sucks. It has its drawbacks. But I'm me. I'm my own man. I'm my boss. I'm my shot caller. Nobody controls me. Nobody makes me do humiliation rituals on live TV. None of that stuff.
Well, Jay, I understand exactly what you're talking about. When I was in high school, I used to hate to wash dishes. And my mom said, if you play sports, you don't have to wash dishes. So, I played football, did track and field. When I did track and field, I threw the shot put. I ran one relay race and I gave away a big lead and they didn't let me run the relay no more. You see, I did the wrestling. I was pretty good at that. And then I played rugby. They had the cool shirts,
Nice.
And we was the only high school that had a rugby team. We played against colleges. And my guy, Jeremy Fukunaga, I'll never forget him. He got his face stepped on and had to get reconstructions to his cheek. And I quit after that. I'm like, okay, this is real. I mean, I understand we don't have no pads. I'm coming home with bruises and hurting. The shirt is cool. But when someone get their face stepped on and no helmet, and you see, okay, it just got real then. I mean,
do I really want to do this, man? You start asking yourself, hey,
there was no question. I did not want to do it no more. It was confirmed. I quit that day, and I had no problems with it. I didn't have a problem with us being only high school playing college, playing grown development. I had no problem with none of that. Like I said, no padding other than elbow or knee pads, all that. But when the guy got his face smashed,
when your face is broke, yeah, okay,
that was a deal breaker. It was a deal breaker. I'm like, can I keep my shirt? I had to turn my shirt in when I quit. I'm like, hey, the shirt ain't that cool. I stuck with the other sports. But
that's exactly why I don't want my son in rugby, and he excels in it. So I'm just hoping that he just loses interest.
But like you said, you gotta have it in your heart, man. And I'm not gonna lie, when I saw my friend, Agnes, your bone getting smashed in, somebody stepping on your face, bro, it took the heart out of me. And I ain't gonna lie,
but
that was the first time ever. It took the heart of me, and I had to
That's one of those pivotal moments where you learn from somebody else's mistakes in life. Right? And you're fortunate enough to be able to learn from somebody else's mistake and not pay the severe one that they paid. Right?
Well,
I'm that mistake, unfortunately. So I'm that guy, right? I hope everybody gets the opportunity that has heard what we've shared tonight, that gets the opportunity to listen really to what I've said, not just listen, but hear what I've said. You know what I mean? Because it can happen to anyone, man. We can take our eyes off the road for a split second, man, and end up in the ditch.
I need you to do me a favor. I need you to let everybody know your social media websites where you can be. We gotta have you back, bro.
Absolutely, yeah. I got an Instagram handle at Jaye Byard, JayeByard, and I also have a Jad Fitness Enterprise Instagram handle, and I also have a Jaye Byard Facebook page. So hit me up on those, and the Instagram one is really the unfiltered one, the Jaye Byard Instagram. That's the one you're going to see me really kind of being myself, unfiltered, raw, unapologetically me.
But Jay, once again, man, I'd like to thank you for coming out. We got to have you again. The stories of lightning and touch. You dropped a lot of jewels. Best of luck, bro. Hope you get another match soon. Hopefully we can help add to that with this interview, man. And once again, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine. And thank you, everybody that took the time to sit down and listen to what we had to say.
We're going to take it out of this, and thank you again, brother. We got to have you back soon.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.